Hi there, this is Ina from Taproot Tarot, and I have some vintage deck unboxings today. These are all decks that I found for good deals, and they're all unopened. And since they're still sealed, I thought it might be nice to unbox them on camera. For those of you who are trying not to buy a ton of decks, apologies for doing so many collection videos lately. Those are just kind of my speed right now. They're easy for me to do. And I do have more activity-based and educational videos planned for the near future. But for right now, this is just easy and fun for me to do. So I hope you don't mind. Please indulge me. Or if you're trying not to be tempted to buy too much stuff, maybe skip my videos for right now. Not the best thing for a tarot tuber or any kind of YouTuber to say, but let's be real, we can't be constantly buying decks. Now, I have been allowing myself to purchase decks this year within a budget just as a treat. It's been a little bit of a rough year, and I have enjoyed treating myself. And I will say that I have found that some of these vintage decks can be found for really good prices if you look at sellers who don't specialize in tarot. That's been my finding. All of these are normally much more expensive than what I purchased them for, and they're worth quite a bit more. But they were all purchased from just random resale shops. I think this one maybe came, one of them, maybe it was this one. One of them came from one of those sellers that clears out old, that buys storage units and clears out old lots. I have bought from several storage unit sellers, and you know, they find a deck of cards and they're like, whatever. And they're not really trying to sell anything for premium prices. They're just trying to get rid of the lot and make back their money. So if you're willing to hold out, that's my recommendation, is to look for those folks who don't necessarily specialize in tarot. Also support the folks who do specialize in tarot, because they do us a great service. But if it's a deck that you are willing to wait for and wait on a good price, man, some of them are just randomly sold for really good deals. So let's start with this one, the Grimaud Ancient Tarot de Marseille. This is Patisci's deck of choice, the various versions of it, and there are several. The older versions are all labeled under the Grimaud label. This one is from 2001, I think? 2000. And it comes in this bubble packaging, old style. And it is still wrapped. And it is stuck. It's just adhered to this advertisement card. Should I keep this silly box? I guess for vintage purposes, maybe. I don't know. I kind of want to throw it away, but tell me what you think. This is still sealed and in nice shape. And the current version of this is under the Cartomancy Douceur label rather than Cartomancy Grimaud label. Some would argue that this is a completely different deck. Grimaud owns Douceur, so I wouldn't argue that. And my assumption is that the reason they printed this under Douceur rather than Grimaud, which is what it's been printed under since the 1940s, I think, 30s, is because Grimaud came out with their new fancy, super expensive pastel-colored series of cards, including Ancient Tarot de Marseille. So I think that is why they switched over to Douceur. I go into a little bit more of the history of all those different playing card companies and when they were purchased and all that stuff in a previous video, which I will link in the description. And I do plan to do a follow-up on that video because since then I have purchased the English translation of Jean-Paul Marteau's book on tarot, and his lineage and way of reading is what influenced Jodorowsky. He was a direct teacher of Jodorowsky, who was then a direct teacher of Yoav Bendov. So it's an important lineage of Tarot de Marseille reading tradition, but the colors are just wild and way off compared to the old Conver coloration that we now recognize as more traditional. And so there's this whole drama where Jodorowsky felt betrayed that, you know, he had been taught to read these colors, which weren't even, you know, the true historical colors, and so on and so forth. All the different versions of this deck have their colors slightly changed. So some folks have maintained that this is a completely different deck because the colors are changed, but every single version of this deck, the colors are changed. Sometimes the images are squished to make room for English as well as French titles. The backs get changed. So every single iteration has changes, and I wouldn't consider any of them major enough to put this in its own category. The only thing that puts this in a different category, in my opinion, is that it's under Douceur, which is owned by Grimaud anyway. So if you want to know more about that, I will link my history video in the comments, and I will plan on a follow-up that will close up some of the loose ends on that video. So let's compare these two. One thing I like about this, even though it's not my favorite coloring in a TDM deck, is that the cardstock is glorious. Like, this is just absolutely lovely cardstock. Of all of my Grimaud or Douceur decks, this is the best cardstock for sure. Now, different iterations of this deck have different cardstocks. Some of them are super thick, like there's the green box and the orange box, and some of them are just very thick and cardboardy. So I'm not sure what this is going to be like. It doesn't seem like it's the super thick cardboard, but this is the 2000 version. Now, I have looked at ISBNs for vintage versions of this deck, and I have found some that match the ISBN on here, which further solidifies my thought that this really is just the next iteration of Grimaud's Ancient Tarot de Marseille. It's just that they labeled it under Douceur to differentiate their new Grimaud. Now, this does not have an ISBN directly on this box. It does have an ISBN on this packaging, which is not the same as what is on there, but I have looked at pictures, like I said, of some of like the old orange box ones, and have found some that have this same ISBN. So think what you will. I think it's the same deck, just a new edition of it. But let's unbox and open this this vintage copy. Patici has a video on the different versions of this deck in his time. And this was his first deck. He talks about, starting out with tarot in the 70s, and you showed up or maybe in the 60s, you showed up and asked for a tarot deck, and this is what they gave you. That was the only option. So I will, well, if you go to my other history video, you'll see that I have that one linked in the description in that video. So definitely a different quality of box. This is a little bit thinner and less glossy. It has some more texture to it. These are in nice shape. And I would say this cardstock is about the same. It's maybe a little silkier. Yeah, maybe a little bit slidier with this, but yeah, the bendiness is the same. So I'm pleased with that because I love this cardstock. This is a little bit stiffer, actually. Yep, very much. So one thing that's so glorious about the current version is that it's just super bendy. And I can never do my bendy cards justice on camera, but this is just absolutely lovely. Now, of course, this one's been used quite a bit and this hasn't, but I don't think that's the only factor. I think this is a very slightly stiffer cardstock. It's probably more papery because it's from 2000, whereas this might have more plastic fibers in it. I'm not sure. I don't know a whole lot about cardstock, but this is still bendy and nice, but not quite as glorious as this. And you can see color-wise, they have the same back, but this is a little lighter. They are the same size though. And the finish is about the same. I would say that the newer version is just a bit slidier. The reds are kind of orangey, but not as orange as the newer version. So the newer version is definitely more muted orange. This is showing up quite bright red on the camera. It's a tiny bit more orange in person. And I would say the blues are more of a royal blue. And the yellows are pretty similar. And there will be little differences. Let me find the Fool here. or I'm sorry, the Magician, Le Bateleur. So I know that's one difference that people talk about. Where is Le Bateleur? Literally like one of the first cards, okay. All right, I picked out a few cards for comparison, but one difference in the new version here on the right is that the tabletop on Le Bateleur is in yellow, whereas it is the same color as the rest of the table in the older version on the left. That is the biggest difference that is jumping out to me, other than the different shades of the colors. I've pulled out a few cards to compare here. The Fool is pretty much the same, just different coloration. The cards are maybe just a tiny bit warped, but not bad at all. So I'm really glad to have a vintage version of this. One, I don't really like how orange the other version is, the newer version. So I'm glad to have one that's a little bit more red. And just to have one that is labeled Grimaud. Oh, this is interesting. So the batons have a blue center here and a green center here. That's a difference. And I'll do more of a comparison when I do my follow-up video on the Marteau tradition of Tarot de Marseille. Two of Cups. I wonder if that says something. The Four of Coins does have the tulip. The very earliest version of Marteau's deck. Marteau is the nephew of Grimaud, by the way. The very earliest version has 3 fleur-de-lis, but here we have a tulip. And I wanted to compare, see if there are pinks in this deck. Oh, all the courts are at the end. That's interesting. Ah, so this is a big difference. So the Valet of Coins really deviates in color with a pink smock, whereas it's red in the older version. And differences in the color of the ground as well. So that's pretty cool. So it's certainly not the exact same deck, although as I mentioned, the every version of this has changes to it. The original colors are quite lovely. I do have a deck that is a recreation of those original 1930 colors, which I'll show, like I said, in that follow-up Marteau video. So this is interesting. I was thinking this was different. We have this fun little landscape down here in this Two of Cups, and it's blank on this Two of Cups. That's pretty cool. So I might look into some of these differences, see where some have popped up and some have disappeared in the various iterations of this deck. So yeah, I've been wanting a vintage version. This is my first vintage version of the Ancient Tarot de Marseille that is labeled as a Grimaud deck. And this one just happened to pop up on a random seller's site for a very reasonable price that I couldn't resist. So very pleased to have this. And let me know if you think I should keep this silly packaging. I don't want to keep it. And also, it's like part of the history of, you know, playing card manufacturing interests me. And I think this, what are these called? Blister pack? Not really blister pack, but this plastic packaging was probably made for export specifically to protect it in export. So I do think that's interesting. And I might keep it in the place where I keep all of my other oversized packaging, just to have it for posterity. I don't know. But it is also kind of garbage, so. What would you do? Tell me, I'm interested. Next up is The Moon Oracle by Caroline Smith and John Astrop. And I have had my eye on this for a while. I think it's just beautiful. Like, the art is just fantastic. You might know that I have a a full moon and new moon practice. I'm not sure how, the way I do it, how a moon oracle would fit into that, but I might find a way to incorporate that. You may remember during my 5-month period of no buy last year, a copy of this came up for sale on Thrift Books for like $10, and I resisted. I was very staunch in my no buy, and I didn't feel like at the time I could take on any more decks and give them the time that they deserved. So I didn't get it. I'm sure somebody else ended up with it and was very lucky to benefit from Thrift Books oversight. The next time they had one up, it was for $70. So I think they got a little bit wise to the worth of this deck. So it is out of print, but I happened to find it from a random bookseller for a very good deal. Not $10 good deal, but still, the price of a typical mass market deck, which is true of all of these. I paid about what you would pay for a typical mass market deck for all these. So I couldn't say no. And this one, I wasn't even expecting it to be sealed. So that was a delightful surprise. So let's finally open this up. I actually know very little about this, except that I think it's very pretty. There's a drawer to it, and it is from Edison Books. It contains 72 lunar oracle cards and a 128-page guidebook, including moon phase tables, so that's pretty helpful. I like to get Llewellyn's moon phase book to help me structure my tarot readings for the new moon and full moon. But this is fun. It has black and white imagery. And what is the date on this? 2013. Has plastic lining here, and the deck itself is sealed in plastic. It's really steeped in mythology. I can't remember who all I've seen it from. I've seen this pictured on a number of channels. But how beautiful is that, Diana? But in kind of a Grecian, almost Greek Egyptian. Oh, and maybe not Diana because there's a leopard and a stag. It's not 2 hounds. So that's pretty cool. And this is kind of iridescent silver. So the cards themselves actually have quite a lot of info on them, it looks like. They don't appear to be in order. And there are some reverse. Whenever this happens, it always makes me wonder, like, did somebody re-wrap this? It looks like it's new. So I'm guessing it was just packaged out of order. But yeah, lots of info. And I think this art is just stunning. A lot of like Egyptian motifs. Huh. Sacrifice. So there's some astrological stuff there, but not necessarily anything to do with the moon phase that I can see. But then some are. Oh, and it like labels which part of the moon phase it is. That's pretty neat. Sleeper. That's really interesting. I don't know anything about this, but I look forward to checking it out in the book. Duel. Huh. Yep, I'm definitely going to have to read up to figure out what this is all about. Here's Isis. Seems like there's a bunch of different categories of card. Palace. Here's another balsamic one. So that first one on top. Oh, a lot of them are balsamic. What does balsamic mean in the context of... okay, so that's gibbous. I know what gibbous means. I haven't heard balsamic. Is that like the waning crescent? Interesting. I'm going to learn some new stuff, but mostly look at this art. It's just absolutely stunning, and I think it will pair well with the historical decks that I prefer. And And that's always a challenge to find decks, oracles that pair well with historical decks. Oh, this is cool. Oh, I'm so delighted to have found this. It's just really beautiful. There's Ishtar. Bouquet, huh? Looks like a Lenormand card. I am super excited to check out the book and learn more about where they're coming from with this art. Hera. And figure out, you know, I'll obviously take their suggestions into consideration when it comes to how to use this deck, but I've already got a moon practice. So I will certainly be figuring out a way to incorporate this into my existing practice. How gorgeous. Wow. I think you can see why I was so drawn by the art. It's very much my style. And to maybe spice up my moon reading practice a little bit. Looking forward to seeing what their suggestions are. A lot of times Oracle decks will, you know, have a way to really have a detailed practice with just the Oracle deck alone. And I do not use Oracle decks by themselves. Okay, this, oh, it's Artemis, okay. That's who is on the back here. Who is also Diana, right? Diana is Roman, Artemis is Greek. But it's kind of like an Alexandrian Egyptian style Greek art. But yes, anyway, so I don't ever use oracles the way they're intended to be used. And I think it's very cool that creators put a lot of thought into how one could use their oracle decks in a really detailed manner. But that's just not how I interact with Oracle. For me, Oracle is, you know, as an addition to tarot. And I don't really feel the need to use Oracle on its own. And I certainly rely on tarot for my moon practice already. I wouldn't want to replace that with an Oracle. I really enjoy my moon practice. Such gorgeous cards. Ooh, Freya, switching it up a little bit. Volcano, that's cool. Wedding. I'm really looking forward to going through the book and figuring out what different categories these cards are in. Did I already totally say that? I think I may have already completely said that. Sorry if I'm being repetitive. How amazing is that, Lilith? I think the stylized geometric cards are my favorites, but I really like the character cards as well. And that's always an option to separate them out into their different categories. Find different ways of using them. Okay, so we're a little multicultural here in, you know, a little bit of an appropriated way. Oh, here we have Kali. That's still quite beautiful. Stone. Interesting. And back to Venus. I think we've seen her already. Yes. All right. So that's that deck. I'm so excited to finally have this. I have had my eye on this forever. It's been on my wish list. I wasn't ready for it yet when it came up for 10 bucks, and that's fine. I really am happy to have ended up with an unopened new copy of it that I think was likely just in some backstock in this random bookshop. So yay for a random bookshop having some vintage backstock. All right, we've got one more. This is one that I saw on Lady Kara's channel, the Shakespeare Oracle, which is a tarot deck, and it's a pip deck even. I had never heard of it until she showed it, and it's just such an absolute delight. I have been in a few Shakespeare plays. I was in A Midsummer Night's Dream. I was the fairy who had lines, and it was an Art Deco New Orleans setting, which was super cool. I was in Comedy of Errors. I've done a scene from The Tempest. I feel like I was in one more, but I don't remember. But I used to be in quite a few plays, just for fun. But yeah, I kind of unceremoniously opened that, but this was sealed, and again, found from just a random shop, a random reseller who didn't really focus on tarot. This is not a Llewellyn production. That is the last name of the creator. It's by A. Bronwyn Llewellyn. Paintings by Cynthia von Bueller, and it is printed by Fair Winds. Now, though I've done, you know, kind of the typical study that most of us have to do for school, reading the different Shakespearean works, and I've been in a few plays. I am definitely not a Shakespeare scholar and don't remember most of what I've ever learned about him, so I'm looking forward to seeing more, or to learning more details about these different characters. I have seen the pub in London where Shakespeare apparently went. I don't think I went in. So these were wrapped with these kind of flimsy plastic. I'm guessing this has been jostled around a bit over the years, and so that kind of came apart. What is the name of that pub? Let me look it up real quick. Okay, so I am thinking of the George Inn, which is the only remaining pub in London, or anywhere that Shakespeare would have gone to. But the round walls I'm thinking of course, are the Globe Theatre, the replica of it that is nearby. So I'm kind of melding those memories a little bit. But anyway, so yeah, I have, you know, kind of a casual interest in Shakespeare. Again, I'm not a Shakespeare scholar, but this deck is so delightful. It's a lovely pip deck, and I've been interested in it since I saw it on Lady Cara's channel, and I'm so stoked. Look at this. So stoked to finally have it. How clever is that? That's amazing. And it says who the characters are. Again, I'm not going to remember who's who for the most part. Shakespeare was more prolific than I could ever keep up with. The Abbess. Empress is Queen Elizabeth, of course. Probably Shakespeare's biggest fan. There were playwrights much more talented in his day, but Elizabeth liked Shakespeare. Henry VIII as the emperor. They wouldn't have been contemporaries, I don't think. I don't know, maybe Shakespeare would have been born while Henry VIII was still alive. The Hierophant is Humphrey, Duke of Gloucester. Cool. I'm not going to read all of these. Of course, the lovers are Romeo and Juliet, though. How sweet is that? It is a light rose petal, but not super rose petally, and they slide pretty nicely. And I really like the weight of the cardstock. The cards are oracle sized, but it is a tarot. Chariot is King Henry. Justice is Portia. Beautiful. Merchant of Venice or at Venice. The Hermit is Caliban. All right, I said I wouldn't read all of them. But isn't this art just delightful? Oh, the hanged one is Hamlet. That's appropriate. How lovely. Gosh, this is so clever. Oh, King Lear is death. Dang. I really love this. Just very handmade art. It looks like it's maybe pastel. I don't know. It said paintings, so they could be paintings. Oh, Puck is the devil. How cool is that? I mentioned I was in A Midsummer Night's Dream. Timon is from Romeo and Juliet, I think, right? Yeah. Oh, which one is this? Oh, I saw this one at, there's an outdoor theater in Spring Green, Wisconsin which is where all the kids who grew up in southern Wisconsin would go and see all sorts of Shakespeare, Macbeth, of course. And I loved the scene with the witches. They did such a cool job with the lighting. It's like outside in the woods, and they lit them up to look super creepy. I'm not sure if... I don't think that one was with school. I think that one I went with a friend because that was at night, and the lighting was super cool. I know I saw The Tempest in Spring Green with school and at least one or two more. But yeah, this art is lovely. I hope there's some information in the book about the making of the art, because that really they look like pastel drawings to me more than paintings. Look at that texture. Yeah, as the world, we've got the Globe Theater. How cool is that? The Globe burned down, but there is a replica of it in existence today, and apparently it is a meticulous replica. All right, so we have ladies and lords in place of pages and knights. Oh, how beautiful. Wow. And then queens and kings. And here are chalices, and each one has a quote. That's amazing. Oh my gosh, I forgot how much I was impressed by this when I saw it on Kara's channel. Thank you, Kara, for influencing me. This has been on my wish list ever since you showed that, and I'm so stoked to finally have it. Oh, I'm just delighted by this. Look at that. Oh, woe is me to have seen what I have seen, see what I see, Hamlet. And that's the Six of Cups. Chalices, rather. What an absolute delight. And the backs are just lovely, like a seal of Shakespeare. A Lady of Coins. I didn't notice that the courts are also named. Oh, no, I did notice that. Never mind. Don't listen to me. There's the Lord. I just love the texture of this art. Look at that. Absolutely adore it. And all the pips are individually hand done. And this suit is labeled coins. Strength and justice are the traditional Marseille order, if that matters to you. Lady of Quills. The cards are a little thick, but they're nice and bendy. I think they're going to shuffle really nicely. But look at the texture. If this is painted, it was... Maybe I could see like a coarse brush making this effect. Artists, what do you think? Oil pastels or painting? Or mixed media even. So Lord of Quills. And we've got two characters in the King of Quills. How beautiful. These are just lovely. Little inkwells as well. Gorgeous. Oh, this is just such a delight. I'm glad I saved this for last because I'm enjoying this immensely. Lady of Scepters. So finally we have Scepter's suit. Catherine of Aragon is one of Henry's wives, and did Shakespeare write a play with her in it? I don't remember. So some of these might just be, such as Queen Elizabeth, might just be characters or actual figures that weren't necessarily characters in Shakespeare's plays. Okay, I'm just being silly. There's a Shakespeare play called Henry VIII. I knew that. So, of course, Catherine is in that play. King of Scepters. I love that line. And finally, the Scepter suit. How lovely. I just adore. Oh, excellent. Five of Scepters is a horse, my kingdom for a horse, Richard III. Fantastic. Well, I'm hoping this will jog my memory of the Shakespeare history that I've long forgotten, and more that I never did know. Yeah, this is a lovely shuffle. It's a little clunky, but not bad at all. Okay, let's draw a card for funsies. A nice matte black, which is gonna, you know, with use, this will become a mess, but that's okay. Yeah, a little bit unwieldy with the sides. Ooh, Queen of Scepters, Catherine of Aragon. But still lovely to work with. Sometimes I like decks that are a challenge to shuffle because it just creates a tactile experience. All right, let's take a look here. The King of Quills. The box is interesting. It's kind of almost paper mache to make it seem like wood a little bit. It reminds me of the Conjure cards, the box that comes in, but not as textured as the Conjure cards box. In the book, the courts are listed before the pips, so King of Quills from Richard II. We have Richard II and Henry Bolingbroke. It has a quote. It has a whole write-up of the character, the role. Wow, this is really studious. And then, so the role is the card meaning. And then reversed is this last paragraph. So the King of Quills represents someone who combines intelligence and action, the power of creative thought, and the forward-reaching doing of deeds. Richard and Henry share different aspects of this king. He is powerful, Richard by divine right, Henry by popular support. He enjoys his position of authority and deed. Richard revels in it. Henry takes it to be necessity. He inspires, Richard through words and Henry through action. He is intelligent and knowledgeable. Henry is authoritative, controlled and commanding. Richard is a passionate thinker, introspective scholar, and philosopher. That's super interesting. So yeah, it really goes into quite a lot of detail. And then has the reversed at the end here. Very cool. All right, let's look up Catherine of Aragon. The Queen of Scepters represents someone who is strong, self-confident, and vibrant. Her friendly warmth and sincerity make her appealing and popular. Her natural authority and boldness make her a good leader. If she feels doubt, she doesn't show it. Her faith in her own abilities and ultimate success instills confidence in others. When you know you are right, you can achieve anything you set your mind to, unfazed by opposition or provocation. This is a person who is gracious, businesslike, easygoing, and open, never arrogant or pushy. Like Catherine condemning the cardinal's heavy taxes, this queen gives her wholehearted support to a cause she believes in and stays firmly determined and passionately committed to her purpose. Wow. Even in defeat, she is impressive and dignified. Indeed. This is super cool. And then there's more of like a one-page write-up for the pips. Let's look at a Triumph, and it looks like it's similar, a couple of pages just like for the courts. Very cool. I am so excited by this. What a delightful deck. I feel super lucky to have gotten my hands on this, and I appreciate you humoring me in showing some collection videos. It had a busy summer, my goodness. And doing some collection videos not only are nice and fun for me, but they're easy, don't require a whole lot of research. And I'm super excited to have gotten my hands on a few decks from my wish list. Sometimes it pays to hold out for a super good deal, which to me is a hobby in and of itself. Like if I really wanted something, I could budget for it, but I really enjoy holding out for a deal. Thanks for joining me today, and I will come back to you soon with a more activity-based deck, or a more activity-based video, I do believe. So I look forward to seeing you then. Thanks again, and you have a great day.